Another super draft has come and gone. And you know, I've always kind of seen it as like the unofficial start to the new MLS season. To be honest, out of everything that makes this league unique, you know, playoffs and salary caps and funky team names, the one hyper-Americanized / Canadianized thing that I'm least enthusiastic about is the super draft. Now, I will say this year's format, way better than previous years. A little awkward at times because sometimes people didn't know exactly what they were doing, but even still, I never liked the NFL style stage and giving speeches afterwards. It just felt over the top to me. And plus that moment when the Nashville supporters drove 300 miles to surprise their first pick, I mean, that's a moment that we're gonna be talking about for years. That was awesome. But not everyone is on board with the MLS Superdraft. Some love it, some absolutely despise it. So let's debate. MLS Superdraft, yay or nay? Oh, and apparently I spelled yay wrong last time in my Let's Debate the MLS All-Star game. I spelled it Y-A-Y, not Y-E-A. Y-E-A, I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me. Why is that yay? But whatever, I'll fix it. Jeff Cameron. Okay, I just want to make sure, is everyone aware of Jeff Cameron's story? He played his last 2 years of his college career in Rhode Island, the Atlantic 10 Conference. And then he was drafted 42nd overall by the Houston Dynamo in the 08 Superdraft. Nominated for Rookie of the Year in 08, Best 11 in 09, made it to MLS Cup 2011, and then in 2012 he was transferred to Stoke City of the EPL. On top of all that, he earned over 50 caps for the US men's national team and made the roster for the 2014 World Cup squad. Yeah, not too bad for the 42nd overall pick in the MLS Superdraft. Now, are we absolutely sure that Jeff Cameron would have even gotten the chance to play professionally without the MLS Superdraft? I mean, we already know that the NCAA isn't the biggest pipeline of talent into MLS. Now, if nothing else, we could at least say the Superdraft forces MLS teams to at least look at NCAA talent. Because yeah, I know, we would like our youth to go play in Europe or play for an MLS academy, but not everyone has that option. And with a seemingly endless pool of talent from around the world, are we sure that MLS teams would collectively sign 40+ players from the NCAA every offseason? Honestly, I'm not so sure about that. Like, do we really want to let all these 22, 23, 24-year-old players slip through the cracks? I mean, we already let enough players slip through the cracks in this country. But like, do we really want to miss out on the next Jeff Cameron from Rhode Island? I know I don't. And it's important to note that Jeff Cameron, he's just one example. There are plenty of players that became stars not only in MLS, but also for the US men's national team after being drafted late in the Superdraft. MLS teams don't care about it. Like, I guarantee you, if you were to ask some of the managers in this league, they would tell you the Superdraft is a complete waste of time for them. For example, in the 2019 MLS Superdraft, out of the 96 picks, 21 of those picks were passed. And I'm sorry, I just don't really understand that strategy. Like, forgive my ignorance, because I'm not an MLS GM or an MLS coach, so I don't know all the intricacies of the MLS Superdraft, but I do know if you draft someone, that doesn't mean you automatically sign them. So why not just draft someone? Like, okay, last year the LA Galaxy had back-to-back picks in the 3rd round, and they passed on both of them. Yeah, okay, if you pass in one, that means you pass in the rest of the picks. But still, I don't get it. Why pass at all? Why not just draft someone? Even if you don't have anyone on the radar, just give them a tryout. Send them down to Los Dos. Hell, maybe you find a diamond in the rough. But no, teams don't even bother to do that because teams don't care about the MLS Superdraft. Also, remember from last year, the Philadelphia Union? They traded away every single one of their picks to FC Cincinnati for $150,000 in general allocation money. That's like the guy that says, oh, don't buy me anything for Christmas, just get me money. Oh, who do you want from the Superdraft? Oh, don't worry, just get me money, I'll figure it out. Now, I think the homegrown rule has taken a lot of shine off of the Superdraft because these homegrown players, these are highly valued by the teams that are signing them. And 10 to 20 years ago, these guys would have been the top picks in the Superdraft. Like, we're getting to the point where academies and homegrown players are becoming the preferred method of signing domestic talent in this country. So why do we even need the draft? Like, couldn't we get rid of it, and for the players that don't fall into the homegrown category, they can just sign for whatever team wants to sign them? Why do we need a draft to disperse these players? The Superdraft is one of the few things left that actually put the small markets and the large markets on an equal playing field. In case you didn't realize, Zlatan was never going to sign for Columbus. David Villa was never going to sign for Real Salt Lake. And Neymar, if he was ever interested in coming to MLS, well, he would never sign with Minnesota. It's hard for small markets. Like, they don't have the luxury of being able to sign the international superstar that everyone knows. But with small markets and large markets being on the same playing field for the Superdraft, that promotes parity, which is a good thing. Parity is what makes this league so interesting. Like, all right, let's say we scrap the Superdraft. Where are the best players that would have been from the draft going to go? They're going to want to go to New York or LA or Atlanta or Seattle. They're going to want to go to the best markets every time. And the small markets aren't going to really be able to do anything about it. I don't know, man. Like, I just don't want MLS to turn into Serie A or Bundesliga where the same team wins it every year. Like, I don't want the best teams to keep distancing themselves from the pack year after year. Like, MLS just cannot lose this parity. That's what makes this league so great. And the Superdraft is just one of those things that puts the big markets and the small markets on the same playing field. It rewards mediocrity. Like, holy, if teams don't face consequences from finishing at the bottom of the table one season, that's one thing. But to reward them with the highest draft pick, like, okay, something seems a little wonky about that. Yeah, I know, that's what we do in every league in this country. And thankfully, MLS will never be quite like the NBA, where teams are actively tanking to try to get that #1 pick. But even still, like, we still shouldn't reward teams for finishing at the bottom of the league. Same deal with allocation order, too. Why do we reward teams that finish at the bottom? I mean, if I haven't made it clear enough, I love parity in this league, but not like this, okay? Like, teams should be propping themselves up. They shouldn't rely on the league to give them the #1 draft pick. Okay, work with me on this one. If you do a draft, why not make teams bid for the draft position? Like, let's say there's a couple teams that are just desperate for a left back. You got teams that are in the playoffs from the year before and teams that finished at the bottom of the year before. Instead of just giving that pick to the team that finished at the bottom, why not make those two teams bid for the draft pick? Okay, I know I'm being ridiculous, but like, don't turn off the video. Just like, let me dream for a second, right? Like, we can make a whole new event out of this. Yeah, each team makes one bid per pick, and the highest bidder gets that pick. If you want to have a lot of picks from the Superdraft, great, you make a lot of bids. If you don't want that many picks, stop making bids. I think this way you'll stop having passes in the 3rd round, and each pick will actually be used. Just think about it. It makes college soccer a viable option. I know I already said this, but sometimes going to Europe or sometimes putting all your marbles in the same basket and trying to make it in the MLS Academy, sometimes that's not the best option for everyone. Like, maybe someone who does have aspirations of going pro also wants to go to college to, you know, get a college education. Look, as a former collegiate athlete myself, I have my issues with the NCAA. Trust me, I do. But at the end of the day, I got to compete, and if I was good enough, I would have gone pro, I would have gone to the Olympics, but I wasn't. But I got to compete, and I still got a degree, which I got to use. So, yeah, it was worth it. I love the idea of academies in this country, but I don't think that should be the only way to becoming a professional soccer player in this country. I think there should be multiple paths to be able to become an MLS player or USL player or whatever. And I think the NCAA can still be a viable option. Now, I do think NCAA should update their rules a little bit to match FIFA rules, but that's a different conversation for a different day. It's all just a crapshoot anyways. I don't know what it is. Maybe America and Canada just need to get better at scouting, but the MLS Superdraft is a crapshoot. It is complete luck. Like the NBA or NFL draft, if you're the #1 overall pick, you are expected to be a perennial all-star. Not like that in MLS. How about this stat? Out of the 24 #1 overall picks in the MLS Superdraft, not counting this year because obviously he hasn't played any games yet, but out of the 24 previous #1 overall picks in the MLS Superdraft, 5 have ever been all-stars. 5 of them. And the amount of busts in the MLS Superdraft, in particular the #1 overall spot, is like absurdly high. Remember 2005? Nicholas Bisagno? Yeah, #1 overall pick, 8 career MLS starts. 8. Or hey, how about 2011? #1 pick, striker Omar Salgado. 1 career MLS goal. 1. Don't get me wrong, there has been a lot of really good talent that came from the MLS Superdraft, but it's like luck of the draw. It's complete random. Like MLS just keeps whiffing on draft picks. And if you get back to my stupid bidding idea, like me, if I was a GM, I wouldn't put all that much stock into the first couple picks. Like I'd want a top 10 pick for sure, but like I wouldn't put that much money into the #1 overall pick. I'd let some other sucker do that. I don't know, maybe college soccer, which is very different than the professional game. Maybe watching some of that just isn't enough to evaluate talent in this country. I think you just gotta revamp the whole super draft system if you're gonna make it work. I mean, you gotta have multiple combines, both sides of the country, make it mandatory for MLS teams to attend. And maybe you can improve it. But all I know is that right now, under the current system, the super draft, it's just complete luck. Okay, here's what I'll say. When MLS first started, was it necessary that they have a draft? Yes, 100%. It was completely necessary because MLS needed a way to be able to fill out the rosters for teams in this league. And many important characters have come through the MLS Superdraft. I don't think anyone can argue that. But as the years have gone on, has the significance of the Superdraft gone down a little bit? Yeah. I think that is also true. I don't think anyone could argue that as well. So does MLS still need a super draft? I will say nay. If you ask me, do I want the current draft as it is or no draft at all, I will say no draft at all. The soccer landscape in this country has changed dramatically over just the past 10 years in both the US and Canada. I mean, the US, look at how many teams MLS has, look at how many teams USL has with Championship and USL 1 and USL 2, and Canada even has its own league now. So there are way more options than in the past for professional soccer in this country. I hate the idea of missing out on potential stars in this country. That's, for me, what makes this debate so hard. But if a player does slip through the cracks, I don't know anymore if it's because it would be the lack of a super draft or just because scouting kind of needs a lot of work in this country. All right, you heard my argument. Now your turn. MLS Superdraft, yay or nay? Let me know. And thanks for watching.